The trail opened suddenly, like someone had sliced a clean window through the pines. Jay stepped out first, his breath forming quick white bursts as he whistled softly. Yo, that's the cleanest ice I've ever seen. The lake lay perfectly still in its hollow, a sheet of frozen clarity so sharp it reflected the sky without distortion. No snow on top, no frost, just a flawless, transparent slab stretching from shore to shore, as if nature had forgotten to add the usual winter textures. Erin hugged her jacket tighter. It doesn't look real. Melissa snapped a few pictures, bouncing on her toes. Are you kidding? This is like movie-level perfect. The group moved closer, boots crunching on the packed snow. Near the edge, Priya knelt and brushed her glove across the ice. The surface gleamed back at her like polished glass. It's thick, she murmured, but the clarity is weird. Noah was the first to step on. The ice didn't groan or crack. Instead, a soft bell-like hum rippled outward from his foot, like striking the rim of a crystal bowl. Okay, that's new, he said, forcing a laugh. Jay followed, sliding a few feet, arms spread wide. Come on, it's solid. Erin hesitated, then stepped onto the lake. The cold shot up through her soles, sharp and immediate. Below her, the water was unnervingly visible, a dark, shifting green. Pebbles, branches, the faint drift of weeds. And then something else. A shape, a long, pale blur lying just beneath the surface. She squinted, thinking it was a trick of the light, but no, it had a curve to it, a torso-like outline, a head. Guys, she said quietly, there's something down there. Melissa leaned over to look. Where? Erin pointed. Right under... But before she finished, the light changed and more shapes faded into view. Not detailed, just impressions, human-sized smudges scattered beneath the lake, as if a crowd had once lain down on the water and frozen in place. Noah swallowed. Those better be logs. Priya stood up fast. They're arranged weirdly. She didn't say the rest. They're arranged like they're watching us. A gust of wind sliced across the ice. The surface answered with a faint cracking whisper, not enough to break, but enough to sound like something shifting far below. Jay forced a grin. Okay, creepy lake bodies aside, we're here to skate. This'll be fine. But Erin kept staring downward, because just for a moment she could swear one of the blurred shapes had a hand lifted, as if reaching to the place where she stood. The sun dipped early behind the pines, dragging the temperature down with it. By the time the group set up a small fire pit near the shore, the lake had gone from pale blue to a flat, glass-black void. Their breaths rose in soft clouds, drifting toward the darkness. Jay poked at the fire. See? Perfect winter getaway. Nothing cursed so far. Except the ice full of whatever that is, Priya muttered, rubbing her arms. Melissa tried to lighten the mood. They're shadows, or rocks, or... Human-sized rocks? Noah shot back. Erin didn't say anything. She kept glancing toward the lake, where the last streaks of daylight reflected on the frozen surface like faint scratches. They played music, roasted cheap marshmallows, argued about who burned theirs the fastest. For a little while, the warmth and laughter dulled the edge of unease. But when the fire burned low, the quiet around them felt heavy, too heavy for an empty forest. Then it happened. A soft crack echoed from the lake. Not the sharp crack of ice breaking, something subtler, a shifting, a stretching, like glass warming or cooling, except it wasn't warm at all. Everyone stopped talking. Another crack, longer this time, carrying across the surface like a slow exhale. Jay threw a twig into the fire. Relax, ice does that. Not like this, Aaron whispered, because layered inside the sound was something else, a faint cadence, almost rhythmic, almost spoken. Priya turned her head slightly. Did you hear? Probably the wind, Noah said quickly. Too quickly. But the wind wasn't saying his name. Aaron froze. There it was again, rising beneath the murmuring cracks, a soft call, muffled, distorted by layers of ice. Aaron! Her stomach dropped. She whipped around to the others, but they were all staring at the lake with the same stunned, horrified expression. Because the ice wasn't calling just to her. Jay, Melissa, Noah, Priya. Each name whispered in a different tone, familiar voices trying to sound natural but stretched wrong, like someone imitating them from underwater. Melissa covered her ears. No, 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 I'm not hearing that. The cracking grew louder, spreading in slow, branching veins toward the center of the lake, forming a perfect circle, as if something beneath the ice were pushing upward. Jay stood abruptly. Everyone inside the tent, now! But as they backed away from the shore, Aaron glanced over her shoulder. The dark shapes under the ice had moved, closer to the surface, closer to them. And one of them was positioned directly under where she had been standing earlier, its blurred head tilted upward, as if listening for her name.
The wind hammered the cabin walls like restless fists. Ray stood by the window now, watching the snow swirl in tight spirals, like something shifting beneath the surface. Cole forced his voice steady. "What do you mean? Someone's been taken?" Ray didn't answer right away. He rubbed his thumb along a dent in the metal window frame, a nervous habit that made Cole uneasy. Finally, Ray said, "You ever look at the incident reports for this stretch of highway?" Cole frowned. "Accidents? Sure. Hypothermia cases, lost hikers. It happens." Ray shook his head. "No, I mean the weird ones, the ones nobody talks about. Disappearances, vehicles found empty, tracks leading nowhere." Cole felt a chill that had nothing to do with winter. Those old reports, the ones filed before he'd ever been hired, were exactly the ones he'd skimmed and dismissed. People in small towns loved ghost stories, but Ray didn't sound like a storyteller. "She shows up on a cycle, near as I can tell, every 11 years, and every time someone goes missing. Not a body found, not a footprint left behind." Cole stared at him. "You think she causes it?" "I think she's connected to it." Ray's voice softened, strangely gentle. "And I think the figures out there, those things watching from the roadside, they're pieces of whoever she took, echoes, shadows." Cole felt his skin crawl. He thought of the shapes lined along the highway, of their identical lean, their weightless stance. "How do you know all this?" he asked. Ray hesitated. "Because I saw those shadows the first time, same as you just did." Cole's pulse quickened. "Then how are you still here?" Ray took a deep, shaking breath. "Because I ran before she chose me." The cabin lights flickered, once, twice, then steadied. Ray stepped closer to Cole. "Listen to me. If she's out again, it means her 11 years are up. Something out here already belongs to her. Someone." Cole's mind raced. Harris, the open door, the missing footprints, the unnatural voice on the radio. A nauseating certainty settled in his gut. Ray must have seen it in his face. "Yeah, that's who I figured too." Before Cole could speak, the radio on the wall crackled, softly at first, like it was trying to clear its throat. Then a voice whispered through, fragile, strained, but unmistakably human. "Call, you left me." Cole's heart clenched. It was Harris, or something that wanted him to think so. Ray backed away from the radio, shaking his head violently. "Don't answer. Don't even breathe near that thing." But the voice came again, broken like a record skipping over ice. "Call. It's cold. I can't see you." Cole stepped forward despite himself. Ray grabbed his arm. "That ain't your friend anymore." The radio went silent. Then, from outside the window, a soft thump echoed, like a single footstep landing on top of the snow. Ray's hand tightened on Cole's sleeve. "She's close." For the rest of the morning, no one spoke much. Jay sat bundled in a blanket near the dying fire, staring at the lake like it might lunge at him again. His jeans were still damp at the knee, but he kept saying he wasn't cold, just off. The others didn't press him. Erin ventured closest to the ice first. Not onto it, just near enough to see her reflection. Except it wasn't really a reflection. The surface was too perfectly clear, the angle too strange. When she leaned forward, her mirrored shape didn't move in sync. It lagged by a fraction of a second, barely noticeable, but enough to make her step back. "Erin?" Priya asked softly. "What do you see?" Erin shook her head. "Nothing, just don't come too close." But curiosity spread like static through the group. One by one they approached the edge, each trying to reassure themselves that the lake wasn't alive, wasn't choosing them, wasn't showing them anything. Melissa gasped first. "Why does mine look taller?" she asked, voice cracking. Noah swallowed. "Mine's turned the wrong way. It's facing the trees." Jay stood shakily and limped forward despite Erin's protest. He stared down at the ice, his face draining of color. His reflection was kneeling, as if reenacting the moment he'd plunged through. Erin's throat tightened. "Guys, we should leave, right now. Forget the gear." But when she reached for the tent, something else caught her eye. Her watch, the cheap digital one she always wore hiking, had stopped. The numbers were frozen at 6:14 a.m., though the sky said it was closer to noon. Melissa checked hers. "Mine too, same time." "And mine." Priya's voice was barely a whisper. Noah flipped his phone over. The lock screen clock didn't match the real time either. "Okay, this is messed up." Jay backed away from the lake. "It's copying us," he said. "Those things under the ice, they're predicting? I don't know." Erin stared out across the glassy surface. More dark shapes had risen closer to the underside of the ice, like silhouettes drifting toward a ceiling. Not random, not scattered, lined up, almost directly beneath the five of them. "Everybody get your stuff," Erin said. Her tone left no room for argument. "We're leaving." But as they turned toward the trail, a faint, brittle crack echoed behind them. Then another. A slow, methodical pattern, like footsteps, coming from inside the ice. They packed in a frantic, uneven rhythm, stuffing blankets into bags, kicking snow over the fire pit, grabbing whatever gear was closest. No one cared what they left behind. They just wanted distance between themselves and the sound of those icy, impossible footsteps. Jay insisted he could walk, though he leaned heavily on Noah as they moved up the trail toward the SUV. The forest felt different now, tighter, as though the trees had shifted overnight and angled themselves inward. Melissa kept glancing over her shoulder. "Do you hear that?" "No," Noah said immediately. Then quieter, "I don't want to." Priya unlocked the SUV, fingers trembling, and everyone piled in. The engine groaned once before coughing awake. Jay exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for hours. Good, we're out," he muttered. But Erin wasn't convinced. Her eyes stayed on the rearview mirror as they pulled onto the narrow forest road. The lake wasn't visible anymore, just a gray sky framed by pines, yet she swore she could still feel the cold weight of it behind them, like a gaze. Jay directed her. Stay right, then left after the bend. Erin nodded. The tires crunched over frost and old needles. But the road didn't look right. They reached a familiar crooked pine, the one they'd passed that morning. Did we already come this way? Priya asked. No, Jay said. There's another tree that looks like... But then another landmark appeared. The split boulder with moss shaped like a crescent. Melissa's voice trembled. We passed that too. Erin tightened her grip on the wheel. The GPS? Priya checked her phone. No signal. Same, said Noah. Jay leaned forward, squinting. Just keep going. It'll straighten out. Forest roads do loops sometimes. But 10 minutes later, the SUV rolled to a stop on its own, because the road, impossibly, perfectly, opened onto the lake. Again. The same turnout, the same angle, their abandoned fire pit still smoking faintly, their own footprints half covered by drifted snow. Melissa covered her mouth. No, we turned. I saw us turn. Jay's face had gone completely blank. We didn't go wrong. We couldn't have. Erin stepped out of the SUV, her boots sinking into the same churned snow from earlier. A low wind skimmed the lake, brushing across the ice like invisible fingers. The surface responded with a soft, answering crack, almost a welcome back. Then Noah noticed it. Guys, look at the shoreline. A shape jutted from the frozen edge of the lake, a car, buried in ice up to the windows, rusted through, half swallowed by decades of winter. A car that looked disturbingly like Jay's SUV. Same model, same dent in the passenger side, same cracked headlight, only old, weathered, abandoned. Jay staggered backward. That can't be. But the frozen metal gleamed under the weak sun like a memory preserved too long. And inside, through the frosted windows, Erin saw shapes slumped in the seats. 5 shapes, outlined just enough to recognize the arrangement. Driver, passenger, 3 in the back. Her voice came out cracked and small. It's us.
For a long moment, no one moved. The rusted SUV, half swallowed by ice, sat there like a photograph of a future that shouldn't exist. Its windows clouded with frost, thick enough to blur every detail, just enough to imagine themselves inside. Jay stepped forward, shaking his head as if trying to rattle the image loose. "That isn't real," he whispered. "It's a junker someone abandoned, that's all." But even he didn't sound convinced. A sudden crack, a dry, splintering snap of wood made them all jump. Someone was watching. Between the trees, a figure stood motionless, a tall man in a heavy, patched coat, face lost beneath the brim of an old hunter's hat. He held an axe, but not in a threatening way, more like a cane. Erin felt her stomach drop. When she blinked, he was already stepping toward them. "Been a while since anyone came here," the man said. His voice was rough, but not unkind. "Shouldn't have, though." Jay instinctively put himself slightly in front of the others. "Who are you?" The man lifted a hand and motioned them deeper into the woods. "Name doesn't matter. You want answers? Best come inside. The cold listens out here." Erin didn't want to follow him. Every instinct screamed no, but staying by the lake felt worse. They trailed him through a narrow path until a weather-beaten cabin appeared, squeezed between 2 leaning pines. Smoke curled from a crooked chimney.
The smell of pine tar and old dust hung in the air. Inside, the warmth hit them all at once, stinging their faces. The man lit a lantern, its glow flickering across the cramped room. Shelves of old maps, traps, yellowed newspapers, a single bunk. Jay crossed his arms. "What's happening to us?" The man didn't answer immediately. He poured hot water into tin cups, sliding them across the table. "Lake Mercy," he said, "ain't a normal lake. Not for maybe 70 years, maybe longer." Melissa's hands trembled around her cup. "What does that mean?" The man glanced toward the frosted window, as though making sure the lake couldn't hear him here. "It remembers people, keeps pieces of 'em, especially those who die on it." He looked straight at Jay. "Or those who are about to." Jay went pale. Noah leaned forward. "Those bodies we saw under the ice? Not bodies. Not yet, anyway. They're shadows, future echoes, what the lake wants to happen." Aaron swallowed hard. "And the voices calling our names?" The man's jaw tightened. "That's how it gets stronger, when you answer, when someone else speaks your name near it. The lake needs identity to claim what it shows." Priya whispered, "So if we never said each other's names?" "It might have stayed quiet," he said, "but you woke it. Happens every decade or so. A group comes up here thinking it's just a pretty view. By the time they realize something is wrong, it's too late." No one breathed. Noah finally asked, "What happened to the last group?" The man stared into the lantern flame for a long, heavy moment. "Never found them, but sometimes in winter I see their outlines under the ice, more every year." A gust of wind slammed against the cabin wall. The lantern flickered violently. The man stood slowly, shoulders tense. "You kids need to stay away from that lake now. Don't say your names. Don't answer if you hear anything. And whatever you do—" He stepped to the window and pulled the curtain aside. The lake was visible through the trees, closer than before. "Don't let it call you twice." The cabin felt smaller by the minute, as if the walls were inching inward with every creak of the wind. Aaron kept replaying the man's warning in her mind. "Don't answer. Don't let it call you twice." Jay sat on a wooden stool, bouncing his knee uncontrollably. "So what, we just wait here until morning?" "No," the man said flatly. "Morning won't change a thing. The lake doesn't care about sunlight." Melissa paced the floor, hands trembling at her sides. "There has to be a way out. We just walk south, find the main road, flag someone down." He shook his head. "It'll spin you around, bring you right back. The forest bends for it in winter." Noah snapped. "So what are we supposed to do? Just die quietly?" The man's face tightened, but he didn't answer. Priya, who had been silent for nearly 10 minutes, finally spoke. "The lake needs names to hold on to people, right? That's what you said." "Names," the man confirmed quietly, "and fear. Fear keeps it fed." Priya looked around at the others, especially at Jay, who wouldn't meet her eyes. "Then maybe we can break that. Maybe if we don't let it know us." Aaron nodded slowly. "If we strip away our names, our identities, maybe it loses its grip." Jay scoffed, but it lacked conviction. "Sounds like magic." "Everything happening out there is magic," Priya shot back. The man hesitated, just long enough for Aaron to notice. "So it could work?" she pressed. He exhaled. "Maybe. Some old stories say the lake can't claim what it can't name, but unmaking yourself," he looked at them each in turn, That's not easy. Before anyone could respond, a sharp, splintering crack split the silence. Not from the cabin, from outside, from the lake. The man's eyes widened. It's close. Erin moved to the window, against every instinct she had, and pulled the curtain just a sliver. A fissure in the lake had crawled across the ice overnight, like a white serpent, winding through the trees until it reached the edge of the cabin's clearing. The line pulsed faintly, as if something beneath it were breathing. Jay backed away. "It's coming here!" Before Erin could speak, Noah suddenly rushed past them, grabbing his coat. "Noah, what are you doing?" Melissa cried. His face was pale, eyes wide with something like desperate logic. "I'm ending this. If it wants names, fine, I'll give it something else." He shoved open the cabin door and ran toward the frozen clearing. "Noah!" Erin shouted. They all spilled out after him. He dropped to his knees on the ground near the reaching fissure. With a jagged stone he'd grabbed from the fire ring, he began scraping letters across the ice, the movements frantic. J, A, Y, E, R, I, N, P, R, I, Y, A, M, E, L, I, S, S, A. "No!" Priya screamed. "Stop! You're feeding it!" "That's the point," Noah shouted back. "Maybe it'll take those names instead of mine." But as soon as he finished the last letter, the ice beneath him responded, not with a crack, but with a low, guttural thrum, like a drum underwater. A black outline blossomed beneath the ice, rising fast. "Noah, move!" Jay yelled. But Noah hesitated, just one heartbeat, and that was enough. The ice around him shattered inward. A cold spray exploded upward as he was yanked down, the dark water swallowing him in a single violent pull. The other screamed, stumbling backward onto the snow. The lake sealed over the opening almost instantly, leaving only smooth, perfect glass where Noah had been. Then, beneath that perfect surface, a new silhouette formed, still, upright. The shape was unmistakably Noah. Melissa fell to her knees, sobbing. Jay stared in mute horror. Priya covered her face. Erin forced herself to look, just once, into the frozen reflection of the friend they had lost. His shadowy face was turned upward, waiting.
The shock of Noah's disappearance hung over them like a weight they couldn't lift. Melissa cried until her breath turned ragged. Priya knelt beside her, unable to speak. Jay just stared at the lake as if waiting for Noah to resurface, even though they all knew he wouldn't. Erin forced herself to stand. The air felt sharper now, as if the cold had teeth. "Everyone back to the cabin," she said, her voice strained but steady. "We can't stay out here." The man didn't argue. He ushered them inside and barred the door, though Erin wasn't sure wood and nails could keep out something that lived in water and mirrors. Inside, the lantern burned low, flickering shadows across the walls. No one sat. No one removed their coats. Melissa suddenly whispered, "It took him because he wrote our names." The man shook his head. "It took him because he offered himself while giving the lake more to latch on to. His fear, his desperation, the lake swallows that whole." Priya wiped her face. "So our fear feeds it?" "All strong feelings do. Grief, panic, rage, anything that shakes you loose from who you are." Jay snapped, "Well, that's perfect, because we're all falling apart." The lantern dimmed for a moment as a gust struck the cabin wall. A sound followed, a long, slow groan from the direction of the lake. Erin tensed. "It's closer." The man nodded grimly. "It comes fastest when a group fractures, when you stop thinking of yourselves as one, when someone gets singled out." Jay flinched. "You mean me?"
He looked down at his trembling hands. First the face under the ice, then Noah writing my name first. "Jay," said Aaron gently, "that's not why." But something in the room shifted. The shadows cast by the lantern didn't match their bodies. Aaron noticed it first. Her silhouette on the wall had moved a half-second after she did, subtly but unmistakably. Then Melissa gasped. Shapes were forming in the corners of the cabin, not solid, not fully visible, just darker patches of air, vaguely human in outline, like silhouettes waiting to step forward. Priya grabbed the lantern and held it high. "They're not all yours," said the man. "Some are from the groups before. The lake keeps echoes of them all." Aaron stared at the nearest shape. It didn't resemble anyone she knew. Its limbs were too long, its posture slightly slouched, its head tilted as if listening. "What do they want?" she whispered. "To take the place the lake made for them, to fill the roles they never lived to fill." Melissa's voice trembled. "Roles?" Jay backed toward the bunk. "What does that mean?" Before the man could answer, a loud, crystalline crack erupted outside. Not random this time, but rhythmic. 3 cracks, a pause, 3 more, like knocking on the ice. Aaron's skin went cold. "It's calling again." Priya grabbed Aaron's sleeve. "We can't let it name us. We can't listen." But the knocking grew louder, closer, and beneath it a faint whisper threaded through the wood of the cabin. "Jay, Melissa, Priya." Jay clamped his hands over his ears. Melissa sobbed harder. Priya shook her head violently. But then the whisper changed. It said Aaron's name, softly, clearly, twice. Aaron staggered back as if struck. The man's face drained of color. "It's chosen," he said. "If it calls you twice, it won't stop, not until—" The lantern went out. Darkness swallowed the room, and in the pitch black, the whisper came again, this time right behind Aaron's ear.
Erin didn't breathe. She didn't move. The voice behind her wasn't loud. That would have been easier. It was quiet enough to feel warm against her skin, like someone leaning in to whisper a secret they had no right to know. Erin. Everyone else froze. The man relit the lantern with shaking hands, its glow pushing back the dark just enough to reveal the truth. The silhouettes in the corners hadn't stayed still. They were closer now, just inches from the walls, their smeared outlines trembling like reflections on disturbed water. Melissa clutched Priya's arm. "It keeps saying her name. Make it stop." "It won't stop," the man snapped. "Once it chooses someone, it chases the name like a scent." Jay stepped between Aaron and the nearest shadow. "Then we don't let it have her. We keep her out of sight. We cover her ears." "No," Aaron said suddenly. Her voice was small, but steady enough to cut through the panic. Jay turned to her. "What do you mean, no?" Aaron swallowed hard. "If it wants my name, then I won't have one. Not anymore." Priya stared at her. "Aaron, you're not thinking clearly." "I am." Aaron took a trembling breath. "It can't claim what it can't identify. The man said that. If I unmake myself, if I let go of everything that ties me to that name, you don't know that'll work," Jay shouted. "I know staying here won't." Another crack outside, closer, right against the cabin wall this time. The silhouettes pulsed, their edges rippling as if something beneath the floorboards were pulling them tighter into shape. Aaron stepped back, away from Jay, away from the others. The lantern light flickered across her face, catching the fear there, but beneath it, something harder, resolve. She reached into her coat and pulled out her wallet, ID, credit cards, a student badge, the pieces of a life small enough to fit in a pocket. She dropped them into the wood stove. Priya gasped. "Aaron!"
My name's printed everywhere, on every card, every document. If it wants to cling to that, then I won't give it the chance." She struck a match. Flames curled around the stack of plastic and paper, eating the letters one by one. The room filled with the sharp smell of burning laminate. The silhouettes shuddered. The whisper outside faltered. Jay stared at her like he didn't recognize her. "You're destroying your whole life." Erin shook her head slowly. "No, I'm taking it back." She lifted her wrist and ripped off her watch, the one frozen at 6:14 a.m., and threw it into the fire. The glass cracked instantly. Then she grabbed her phone and slammed it against the stove's iron edge until the screen shattered. "Erin, stop," pleaded Melissa, but the name didn't seem to belong to her anymore. The lake's whisper returned, but this time it was confused, distorted, the syllables stretching wrong. "Erin, en." The man stepped forward, his eyes wide. "It's losing hold of you." The cabin shook violently. Dust rained from the rafters. The silhouettes flickered like candle flames in a storm, then recoiled, their shapes blurring into formless black smears. And through the window, across the clearing, the ice began to glow with a dull, unnatural light. Priya whispered, "What's happening?" Erin didn't blink. "It's angry." Jay grabbed her shoulders. "If it can't claim you, it'll come for someone else." "No," Erin said, "it won't." She stepped toward the door, and when she spoke again, her voice was steadier than any of them had ever heard. "Because I'm going to finish this." The cabin door groaned as Erin pulled it open, spilling a wave of frigid air inside. The others called after her, but the wind swallowed their voices. Beyond the clearing, the lake glowed faintly beneath the overcast sky, a dull, pulsing light radiating from deep under the glassy surface, as if something alive were stirring. But Erin felt strangely calm. A person without a name couldn't be hunted. A shadow without identity couldn't be copied. Jay stumbled after her. "Wait, you can't go out there alone." She didn't turn. "If it wants me, it doesn't know what I am anymore." The man from the cabin stepped beside Jay, holding him back with one steady hand. His eyes, though sad, held a flicker of something like recognition. "She's right," he murmured. "The lake doesn't understand the nameless. She's invisible to it now." Erin walked across the clearing, boots crunching softly until she stepped onto the glassy surface. No crack, no whisper, no calling voice, only silence. The dark shapes beneath the ice swirled uncertainly, drifting like disoriented shadows. One rose toward her, Noah's outline, faint but unmistakable, yet it didn't reach for her. It hesitated, as though it couldn't decide what she was. "It's over," she whispered. "You can't take more." Her reflection didn't appear on the ice. The lake couldn't mirror a person it couldn't name. The glowing pulse beneath her feet faded. The water stilled. The shapes retreated, sinking deeper and deeper until they blurred into the darkness. And then the ice exhaled. A long, trembling sigh rippled outward, flowing to every edge of the lake. The surface dulled, turning cloudy, losing its unnatural glass-like clarity. For the first time since they'd arrived, it looked like ordinary winter ice. Behind her, Melissa cried out in relief. Priya collapsed to her knees. Jay let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. The man bowed his head. "It released you, all of you." Erin stepped back onto the snow. The lake did not follow. No cracks, no whispers, just quiet. Melissa rushed forward and hugged her, sobbing. Priya joined them. Jay hovered, stunned, but smiling for the first time in hours. "You did it!" he breathed. But Erin didn't smile, because as the clouds parted slightly, she looked down at the snow and noticed something odd. No footprints. Her boots left no impression at all. Priya saw her expression. "Erin, what's wrong?" Erin touched her chest, felt her heartbeat, faint, distant, as if it belonged to someone else. The man stepped closer, sorrow etched deep into his features. "That lake doesn't take easily, even when it loses. Something always stays behind." Erin looked back at the frozen water. The glowing was gone, the silhouettes were gone, and yet a single new shadow lingered faintly beneath the surface. Not Noah, not any of the others, a quiet shape, standing still, watching. Her own. Erin turned away from the lake, her voice barely audible. "I don't know who I am now, but I guess the lake does." And in the silence of the forest, the wind carried a final broken whisper, not calling a name, but repeating it like a memory slipping away. "Erin, Erin."